OK, let's start, Mills. Two teams on the weekend at Eden Park. Tough first 20 minutes for both sides, but how much better do you expect both teams to be this weekend at Eden Park?
I think they'll be a lot better. I think it lacked a little bit of accuracy, particularly earlier on from both sides, a little bit scrappy. That fluency was out of the game for sure, and I just wonder whether that sort of couple of weeks, you know, sometimes no matter how hard you train, you can't quite get to that intensity until you're out there on the field. So, but all in all, it's a big tick because we've got one hand on the Bledisloe and one more to go, and we'll keep it in the cabinet. JK, concerned, not concerned? What did you make of the 80-minute performance?
Oh, yeah, I thought it was really sloppy. Probably, I think I said on air, probably the sloppiest 25 minutes I've seen for a long time. But they came back and won it. I think that's a sign of the courage. You know, it's not easy to get that sort of performance back when things aren't going right. So that was really good. Like Mills said, one hand on the cup, good win. Coach probably can wind the boys up. Last 10 minutes, Chelsea, I thought. So really what I would like to see is consistency of an 80-minute performance. When I say consistency, I don't mean you have to be great through it, but, you know, sort of mistakes spread out across 80 minutes, not just in a bunch, maybe.
Yeah, Chelsea, we got a sense, though, going into this Test match, this was the #1 team for the All Blacks. The fact they looked at form and everyone coming back in. When you look at the selection maybe this week, are there some hard discussions over the last 24 hours of what they do this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the coaches do go with this week. But for me, having 2 Test matches against the same team back-to-back weekends is the perfect opportunity to get a great review done among your team, fix any mistakes. They need to sort their discipline out. So for me, I'd kind of be leaning towards getting near the same crew back out there, and after a bit of review, seeing how they can fix their mistakes and really testing their resilience.
Are some of those things simple, Mills? I mean, you've seen the game, you've looked at it in depth, you've coached the game, played so much of it, you look at doing a review. We're going to talk to Nuggie in a moment. Let's see whether we can be on the mark. But the simple things they can fix for you? Oh,
I think so. I think it's fixable. You could obviously, from the outside in, see what they were trying to expose in terms of, I suppose, the wider channels, that sort of upbeat sort of game. You know, Australia will be the same as well. You know, earlier on, they didn't get their set piece right. They came right in the end. I'm talking about their line-out and the variation in the line-out as well. I was really surprised about sort of the way they went about that. But I think it's fixable. I think what Chelsea's mentioned is that consistency in selection, and it's probably hammered home more for the coach, the fact that the reserves didn't quite, you know, lift that to the next level. So I say get the same team out there again, you know, in my opinion, and start building some of those combinations.
The last couple of years, Chelsea, we have struggled the first test against the Wallabies. The fact, yes, we've gone through Trans-Tasman this year, but when you're talking about making adjustments, from what you saw in terms of tactically from the All Blacks, do you think they might change things going into this week?
Yeah, that's really interesting. We have struggled in the first test, but historically we come back in the second test and put a really solid performance in there. So I think the coaches will be making subtle changes. I hope that they do have a kind of B game plan to go to if they need to, because, yeah, the game plan they played last week, I just felt like it didn't quite click in certain areas. So I think, yeah, they'll review that and hopefully go into their back pocket for Plan B.
That's a great point about that Plan B, Plan A. I mean, the combination of the laws right now, and we saw it in South Africa.
Don't start me on the laws.
I'm not starting on the laws specifically right now.
Start me on the laws.
No, but the fact of the nature of the game and how strong and teams are defensively, and the game, particularly early on, is quite suffocating in terms there is very little space, so much pressure. Is our kicking game, does our kicking game need to be a little bit more manipulative in the first 20 minutes, control and maybe ease into it, rather than it looked as though on the weekend we tried to go to the edges quite early on rather than playing a little bit of breeze, a little bit of moisture in the ground?
Oh, look, I don't think you can judge the first 25 minutes, and it'll be interesting to talk to Aaron, because it's frustrating when across the board you make errors, because you cannot go out and actually implement the game plan that you want, and you can't build those blocks. Like, you might kick early to bring the defence up or things like that. If you're making errors, you can't establish that. And so I think it throws the whole game plan out the window. I think that's the most difficult thing. The thing that frustrates me the most at the moment is you can't even get any rhythm at the moment, because there is a law every 2 rucks. So you know, and so that's what we need to address. We need to have some sort of continuity where you can run yourself into some form, or you can start breaking down defences. You know, it's a power game now. We need to take some of the power out of it with fatigue. But why would you change the bench on the weekend when there wasn't any play over sort of 30 or 40 seconds. You know, we're not seeing the 10 or 12 rucks anymore. And we need to do something about that because fatigue is a big part of Test matches for me.
Are we a bit too much risk and reward sometimes, Mills? The fact that we're thinking we can try and break down the defence earlier on is a conservative game plan that might be of benefit to the All Blacks, or we go from minute 1 to minute 80 and just we take what's in front of us?
Well, we'd like to. I think as an audience and as a spectator, we'd love to see the All Blacks do that. But I just think they didn't quite get that balance right. You know, at the beginning, things weren't, you know, they were in their own half. The territory game was lost possession as well. But Australia were making mistakes. And, you know, we had our first crack, didn't quite get it right. It wasn't as smooth and fluent. I would have loved to see them to say, well, OK, this isn't going right. Let's put it in behind them and ask the questions of the Wallabies to come out there. You know, they've had a crack down our end. Now let's put a bit of pressure on them to see if they can come out there and then start building that sort of mental sort of state out of them, you know, to say, well, let's back yourself to get out of that. And we played a bit more and keep making mistakes, and I think that's probably where we lost our way a little bit, and we brought it back in the second half, but we needed to go to half-time to be able to have that talk, and I think that was probably the disappointing part, the fact that they were so messy and they didn't go to putting it in behind the Wallabies and asking the question of them. And
typically, Chelsea, what we do is we look at ourselves. But I think we have to look at the Wallabies as well, the fact they did some really positive things that disrupted our game. They brought pressure. What did you make of Dave Rennie's team, their performance, in particular the way they finished the game?
I think Dave Rennie and himself coaching that team, he's going to get them to where they need to be to perform against the ABs. He has so much respect, and he's obviously had a great coaching record. Plus, he's coached a lot of the boys in the All Blacks as well, so that could also be an edge. But, yeah, look, talking on the back of Super, the Super Rugby Australia teams didn't perform well, but we knew that they picked the cream of the crop and get them in a Wallabies jersey against the All Blacks, even at Eden Park. They're going to come out absolutely firing. So they did their homework, the coaching staff. They knew where they could, I guess, kind of rattle the ABs a little bit. And I think they'll also be doing a massive review this week because they were so close to winning that game, and just a few little different decisions here and there could have been a different story.
I disagree, Chelsea. I disagree for a reason. I think that you'll never get the All Blacks making that many mistakes in the first 20 minutes, and the Australian team did not capitalise on it. The fullback at one stage, instead of kicking to the corner, he made this kick that was like 20 yards. Then they got down and lost their lineouts. The All Blacks are not going to make those mistakes again, but you're not going to get the opportunity to mount pressure again. And I think they don't go away. I think Dave Rennie's done a great job with their character. They saw that against France and they came home late. But I reckon they missed an opportunity to really put us under the pump. I was sitting there watching the game thinking, 3 penalties in a row and 2 errors from the All Blacks. We should be pinned in our corner, just defending our butts off trying to stay it, but it wasn't. So they blew it, I reckon.